All right. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see some smiling, friendly faces in the room. And I am Jeff Peckrell, and I am the coordinator for the forum and a member of the Human Rights Working Group, the committee that runs forum, that selects all the presenters that we have today. Actually, today's recommendation came from a church member. So this is how we sometimes come up with our speakers. And like to tell you about a few announcements before we start with today's presentation. So next Sunday, we have two activists from the Answer Coalition who will be here talking to us about the crisis of immigrant rights and the deportations that are beginning to happen around the country and what people around here are doing to try to stop that and prevent that from happening to our community members here. The Sunday after that will be in April, which is Earth Day month. Is that a word or expression? So we'll be trying to do more programming around the environment and the climate crisis during the month of April. And the first talk we have is from someone from an organization called Future Forests. So those are the next two talks that we have upcoming. I'd like to take a minute to recognize the death of an activist that many of you might know. His name was David Hartsoe. And he presented here at Forum a couple of times since I started working with Forum, and he lived in Santa Rosa, and I just learned last night that he passed away, so I just wanted to mention this to you. It's kind of a sad thing for some of us, for all of us, really. And with that, I think we'll have Dolores. Would you mind doing the Ohlone land recognition, Dolores?
Good morning, everybody. We, the members of the First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco, gratefully acknowledge that we are located on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples who inhabited what is now the San Francisco Peninsula. We recognize that we benefit from living and working here, and we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples. The Greater Bay Area is also the ancestral territory of the Miwok, Yokuts, Patwin, and many other tribes. As the original stewards of this land, the indigenous peoples understood the interconnectedness of all things and maintained harmony with nature for millennia. We honor them now for their enduring commitment to our Mother Earth. Thank you.
I think that in addition to sharing this land with the ancestral peoples, there are animals that have lived in this place for a long time. So we're going to learn more about that today. Our speaker today is Janet Kessler. She is the Coyote lady and a self-taught naturalist who has spent nearly 2 decades conducting daily field research documenting urban coyote behavior and family life. So with that, I'd like to introduce Janet to the podium.
Hi, I'm Janet, and I'm here to talk about coyotes. But first, I want to welcome everybody and thank you for inviting me. I am a self-taught naturalist who has been documenting coyote behavior here in San Francisco every day for the last 18 years. What I look at is individual behaviors. These animals are very intelligent. I look at their family life and interactions. They're highly intelligent, they're highly social, and I look at their behavior around pets who they don't like and people who they avoid. And this isn't working. Oh, maybe if I press this, it'll work. So there's the family life. They're highly social. And they interact with dogs who they don't like and with people who they avoid. And I always begin this process by figuring out who each coyote is as an individual. I tell them apart by their faces. Each is unique. as you can see in these photographs here, and the differences run deeper into their various personalities, which become apparent by comparing and contrasting them. So, for example, some are much more curious and inquisitive, whereas others are much more cautious and careful. Some are more playful, gregarious, and love to tease, whereas others are much more serious, watchful, and withdrawn. Then on top of these personality differences, their different stages of development also serve to distinguish them. So for example, they all begin as pups in families, on territories, in highly social situations, and then most move on to becoming interloping loners without families and without social networks, which is a big change for them. Eventually, many find mates and become parents and defenders of their own turfs. And then at some point, they grow old and they lose their mates and they leave or lose their territories. So each situation engenders a different set of behaviors, all of which go to define who the coyotes are and to distinguish them. So being able to distinguish each coyote is what has allowed me to assemble their relationships and and to study their family life, and then to map their territories here in San Francisco, and even some of their dispersals. And then to verify these very visual findings a little more scientifically, I've collected scat for DNA analysis at UC Davis, where I've been collaborating in a citywide population study. So that's what I do and how I do it. And today I'm going to give you a comprehensive introduction to coyotes here in San Francisco based on my own observations, photos, and maps. So we're going to cover 3 points in a packed 40 minutes, beginning with their population structure and distribution. We're going to move on to coyote family life and interactions, and we will wind down with stewardship and guidelines for coexistence. And at the end, I'll tack on a little bit about a communication between a mated pair of coyotes, and there should be time for questions at the end. So just during the last 25 years, coyotes have been moving more and more into cities and urban areas throughout the country, where they claim territories in parks, in open spaces, and even in some of our neighborhoods. They returned to San Francisco in 2002 after many years of absence due to our having killed them off. In fact, I met a man who told me that in the 1950s, he was paid $4 for every set of ears he brought in. So our human-dominated cityscapes of the past have morphed now into urban ecosystems of inclusivity. In these urban areas, coyotes are not wandering around haphazardly or multiplying wildly, as many people think. And this is a map I've created based on my own observations, showing how the population is divided and situated into discrete family units on distinct territories with fairly exact borders. Only one coyote family and no other coyotes lives on any of these territories. And these territories run about 2.5 square miles in size, about the size of the Presidio where one coyote family lives. Yet these territories are about half or even less than half the size of territories in the wild. And I've mapped 17 of these territories. There are at least 5 more. So we have about 20 territories here in San Francisco, covering the entirety of the city. Family members then routinely trek through their areas as they, among other things, mark their territories in order to keep other coyotes out. Rarely, you might see a dispersing youngster passing through as quickly or inconspicuously as possible. And here you have such an individual on the right being repulsed by a territorial owner on the left. So parent pairs own vast territories and keep others out, thereby limiting the population to just their own families for every 2.5 square miles. This is what their territoriality is about. And I've seen some of these territories occupied by the same family generationally for 17 years and running, providing long-term stability to the area's population. Having said this, nothing is 100% when it comes to coyotes. And here is an interloping loner who has been living on the periphery of several territories for several years. He's old and he's crippled. He only has the use of 3 legs. And maybe this is why he has been allowed to remain on the edge of this territory. Also, mangy coyotes have been sticking to the periphery of their territories for many months instead of moving on, which is something new. Last year, unusually, one of the territories that I was observing was claimed by 2 different families, but this appears to have been a very temporary situation. The mother coyote there got mange. She became very ill and probably was unable to keep outsiders out. But this is now back to one family. And last year, an injured, or not last year, several years ago, an injured dispersing coyote was actually harbored and cared for by a family that was not his until his leg healed. He had an actual broken leg. And here is a mother coyote to the left, not his mother, and she took care of him for many weeks until he was well enough to move on. So the point I'm trying to make is there are exceptions now and then to the generality of single family units where that keep other coyotes out. Keeping other coyotes out then preserves the scarce resources on that land just for themselves. Their diets consist mostly of rodents of all types, particularly gophers, and then also mesopredators, including roadkill, such as raccoons and opossums. Lizards, amphibians, birds, bugs, fruit of all types, vegetation of all types, and plenty of human refuse. In fact, much more than previously thought. It's as high as 50% of their diet comes from human refuse. So coyotes are known as opportunistic eaters, meaning they can eat almost anything, including cats. Please don't add your pets to the food chain by allowing them to roam free. So in addition to their territoriality, another factor limiting the population is that only the alpha parents on any territory ever reproduce, even when a youngster has come of age. And here's one way in which that happens. A mother wallops her yearling daughter to either disperse her, to make her leave, or to instill fear so that she won't reproduce. And I want you to notice the silent, steely staring. It's razor sharp, very intimidating. And then there's physical intimidation through body slams. She's trying to get that daughter to go. And then again, there's that nervous, steely staring. And I've tried zooming in so you can see the incessant blinking, showing just how nervous they really are. So coyote population is self-regulating. Younger females are referred to as behaviorally sterile. Killing them to manage their numbers disrupts this process, leading to disorganization, more litters, and actually an increase in the population. And this comes to you from a 1972 study by F.F. Knowlton. And I want you all to know that our government and hunters kill over 100,000 coyotes every year, yet this has not dented their population at all. So continuing with their life cycle, pups are born just once a year in the springtime, with litter sizes here in San Francisco ranging from 1 to 7, averaging 4, with a fairly low survival rate. Half is not unusual. And interestingly, coyote males produce sperm only at this one time of year in a process called spermatogenesis. So dens then are used only for the pupping season, only for birthing and nursing the very young pups. These are soon outgrown and abandoned, and coyotes end up sleeping out in the open for the rest of their lives. Their dens might consist of expansions of pre-existing burrows of other animals or cavities under rocks, under logs, or under tree roots. They also dig their own dens from scratch, and they've even denned under some of our porches. They dig multiple dens as backups, and then they switch between them if needed for health or for safety reasons. And here is a mother coyote moving her den of pups one at a time. She carried 6 pups about half a mile through the streets of San Francisco to move her, let's see. Got to get back to Mother Coyote. She moved each pup half a mile through the streets of San Francisco with her mate only escorting her once, but not helping to carry any of the coyotes, which I think is funny. And by the way, they protect their dens a good 4th mile, 1,000 feet from the actual hole that enters the den. A lot of people think coyotes should just be protecting that little opening, but it's a huge area where the pups will be exploring when they're very young. So after they mature, most youngsters disperse or leave home sometime during their 2nd year, when they're about a year old. They're either driven out by a parent or a sibling, and in this photograph here, both a parent and a sibling are working on driving that youngster on the left out, or they just pick up on their own when their time clocks tell them that, hey, time to get going. This dispersal is a very dangerous time for them due to cars. Cars are their chief killers in cities. In fact, cars might be considered their main predator. In fact, in 2021, 24 coyotes were picked up, killed by cars on the streets of San Francisco, which is huge when you know that their adult population hovers between 80 and 90. So that's about 1/4 of them. So there's also danger from hostile coyotes when they disperse and from unfamiliarity with the terrain. So when they disperse, they do so as quietly and unobtrusively as possible. So the population is like a breathing bellows, expanding during the pupping season and then shrinking back down basically to that alpha pair, with possibly a couple of yearlings lingering a little longer to help with the next year's pups before moving on. And I've tracked a number of their dispersals here in San Francisco. A determined coyote might fight for a territory within the city if she detects weak or aging alphas. And this happened in the Presidio in 2019. Or a very lucky coyote just might find a vacated niche. And that happened in the Bernal area in 2016. However, most tend to move south and out of the city because all territories are already taken within the city. This next map details one coyote's months of crisscrossings in search of a territory, even out of the city and back. And this next, her journeys end in the Presidio. Note, there's no more wandering. She's found her niche, she sticks to it, and she keeps other coyotes out. So these last 2 maps are from the Presidio. Of the 15 coyotes they tagged and radio collared over a 3-year span, all were killed by cars except one. And most were moving south and out of the city. And the radio collars and tags themselves produce problems. Here you see her right ear is permanently folded over due to an infection caused by that ear tag. And the collar itself, the bulky collar, was supposed to self-release after 1 year for humane reasons. A number of them malfunctioned, and this one has been on this coyote almost 9 years. So if you can't tell, I'm not a fan of these objects. Few people think about this, but coyotes get old. They get hard of seeing, hard of hearing, arthritic and tired. Life becomes more difficult as they age, no different from our aging dogs. So their lifespan in captivity is 14 to 16 years. However, I'm told that in the wild, they live only 3 to 5 years, and that's due to human predation on them. Here in the city, I have known several who've reached the age of 12 and almost 12, but I tend to think that few actually reach that milestone. As for injuries and diseases, there are many. I have seen lots of skin parasites, lots of intestinal parasites. I've seen wounds from the environment, including from territorial battles. And the wounds you see here are from a territorial battle. They do have their own internal strife that few humans are aware of. I have seen lots of limping, lots of it due to having been chased by dogs. Here is a lost eye. I don't know how that happened. Here's a lost tail. I have no idea how that's happened. Rat poison kills horrifically, and if it doesn't kill, it opens the pathway for such pathogens as mange, as you see here, and mange is something big that is going on in the city right now. So life is short and hard for them, but it's also joyous, which we will look at now. So that covers their population structure, density, and life cycle. And now let's move on to coyote family life. A defining characteristic of coyotes is their family life. They're highly social, highly interactive, and highly communicative, just like we are. And many, if not most, famously mate for life. A typical family consists of a male and a female, and then pups and or yearlings who soon leave the area. And here is such a typical family. It looks like a pack of adults. It is not. 4 of those are 6-month-old pups. And there are variations on this theme. Here is a single mom in the middle with 2 of her sons. Her mate was killed by rat poison. She raised them alone and did not take on a mate for 4 years. And when she did take on a mate, it was one of her sons. Inbreeding is fairly common in coyote families. Here is a territorial loner who remained alone on her claimed territory for many years before accepting a mate. Here is a rare mother-daughter double lactating situation, suggesting that the daughter who's in the middle was a wet nurse and helped with the nursing. However, we have not ruled out double denning yet, but everybody needs to know the litter was no bigger than an average litter size there. And lastly, families recombine when, say, one of the alphas is killed or rarely when there is a divorce. And yes, there are divorces in coyote families. So coyote family units consist of related individuals and are not like packs of unrelated stray dogs who often act like gangsters. And I tend to think that a lot of people think of coyotes in this fashion. They're not. Contrary to dog packs, coyote family units are orderly and organized. There are hierarchies and there is discipline. Here one is disciplining another by grabbing its snout. It's a little bit like a hand slap. In fact, even their days are somewhat organized. After sleeping usually during daylight hours and usually in separate locations, their activity generally begins in the evening at their family rendezvous, where they meet and greet and interact and confirm each other's ranks. There can be lots of excitement, lots of squealing at this time. It's a little bit like a party. And then they trek through their territories beyond the parks, where they continue to socialize, they hunt, they patrol, and they mark their territories. They care for each other through mutual grooming, like removing ticks from each other. And they care for family members in danger or in pain. Here, a female prods her mate to move away from an area where dogs might continue to chase him. Dogs chasing him had caused him an actual break in his ankle. They cuddle and greet each other with wiggles and squiggles and joyous jumps and body hugs. There's lots of intimacy between them. They tease and horse around all the time. Here, one coyote slipped under another, lifting her on his back where he left her to dangle for a moment, so they can be very funny. They love to play tricks on each other. To the left, mom teasingly swipes a rat from her son and runs with it, inspiring a game of chase. And another trick is to spy on and then steal something buried by another coyote and hide it somewhere just for yourself. So they're known as tricksters and teasers, and maybe this is why. There's lots of excitement when they play. They love a three-way tug of war. And as they run around rambunctiously with each other, they'll leap over and even onto each other in their excitement. And here you can see an adult pair in milder action. They flop on each other, they poke, they pull tails. There's lots of teasing, lots of provoking, lots of intimacy, communication, and reaching out and touching. Hop on pop. Dad is important in coyote families. Both parents raise the youngsters. This is very unusual in the mammal world. And again, here is Dad playing with one of his pups. Also, yearlings born the previous year often pitch in with feeding, guarding, playing with, and teaching the younger pups. At times, there's friction in coyote families, just like in our own. Here, two brothers who used to be best buddies are now squabbling. One or both will soon disperse because this antagonistic behavior is not tolerated for long. Their feelings appear to be very strong and are very obvious when watching them, which is what makes watching them so much fun if they'll allow you to watch them. So, for example, they can act sad and rejected when they're taunted, excluded, or shunned, as with these coyotes here. Communication is another way of interacting. Coyotes communicate constantly through eye contact. They're always aware of each other's moods and intentions. In fact, most of their communication is silent through body language. Silent communication includes the use of odors. In fact, in our terms, coyotes almost see with their noses. They produce and detect pheromones, which are chemicals, which convey just a huge amount of information, including territorial boundaries through urine, scent marking, the presence of an intruder coyote. They can identify specific coyotes, individuals who have passed through hours and even days beforehand, and they can even detect injury and illness in each other and in other species, which is something that aids them in their hunting, and much more than this. So communication, of course, includes sounds. When they are noisy, they are very noisy. And we're going to hear 5 examples of their vocalizations, beginning with family howls. Here, they're responding to sirens, possibly to express their family unity and their territorial separateness from neighboring coyotes. And this particular howling session, you'll see segues into that exciting family rendezvous I told you about. And the party begins. Next is social vocalizing of a mated pair. I think you'll agree that this sounds very conversational. They appear to be checking in, possibly checking on each other's location and maybe how they are. Oh my goodness. Let's see. That's the female. That's the male. Next is a doleful call after chasing out an intruder coyote, with two youngsters then joining him, possibly for solidarity. So we're going to wait to hear the fourth vocalization until we talk about dogs, but I wanted to go ahead and summarize their voicings for you. So their sounds range from sing-songy friendly howls, yips, whines, and squeals, as you heard in that family recording, to more raspy, grainy growls, snarls, hisses, barks, moans, and high-pitched complaints, showing that they are angry or upset, or they use these as a warning, as you heard in that doleful call. Use of lips and tongues allow modulations, which I hope you saw in all three of those recordings. Their ability to create a variety of tones and pitches often cause just a few coyotes to sound like many more than there really are. Also, unique howl patterns distinguish each coyote and identify them. And I know this because I've been able to identify some coyotes by their howls. And you know, if I can, they certainly can. And I have never heard a coyote howl at a kill. This is a misconception. They're quiet and secretive when they hunt. They don't want to advertise their hunting. So we barely scratched the surface here. You can explore more if you're interested under the heading Voicings on my blog. So that covers their family life, social life, their interactions, and their communication. And now let's move on to stewardship and guidelines for coexistence. As we have just seen, coyotes are very wrapped up in their own social and family lives. We don't see most of this because they're highly secretive. They don't want us to see it. But in addition to this, most of their activity is in the evening when we aren't around to see it, and when it's too dark to see it. Even though these are diurnal animals, just like we are, and can be seen anytime during the day. So if you've been lucky enough to see their family interactions, you've just seen how joyful and heartwarming it can be. But they also have a more protective, survivalist side to themselves, especially when it comes to dogs. The biggest urban coyote issue is pets. Coyotes and dogs do not like each other. They consider each other as threats, and small pets look like food. 3 triggers often cause a coyote to react to your pet. First is proximity. It offers both coyotes and pets an opportunity to interact, almost always negatively. We can prevent giving them these opportunities by walking away and staying away the minute we see a coyote. Secondly, coyotes hunt, of course. Very small pets are vulnerable as prey. Coyotes don't know who is a pet and who is not. So small pets especially need to be always tightly supervised, even in backyards. Please remember that a coyote can jump a 6-foot fence from a standing position. Thirdly, their territoriality, which we've talked about, is behind most of their antagonism with dogs, as it is with other coyotes. Again, territoriality involves protection of scarce resources, and it's a sanctuary for raising their own youngsters. So coyotes are always suspicious of dogs and always see them as threats. So then how do coyotes enforce their territoriality? They do so through intense messaging, even from over 100 feet away, which may sound like it's just coming out of the blue. It isn't. They're messaging from that distance. And this is how they message dogs, through eye-to-eye contact and facial expressions. And even if you can't read this, your dog can, through body language, including kicking the dirt angrily, hissing and barking. And they may up the ante by charging and nipping the back legs of a dog, cattle dog fashion, in order to get that dog to leave. So this is messaging. It's not mauling. They want the dog to leave. However, it can be intense, insistent, and persistent, especially during the denning season, which is what makes it so scary. And it's intense so that we'll listen. All these people complaining about dog coyote encounters. Well, they've been made to listen. And we're used to having other animals listen to us. And many of us don't like this, having to listen to what a coyote wants. So leashing and walking away can prevent an escalation. And here's more messaging through body language towards a dog. Note the hairpin arched back. Note the gaping, and there's hissing involved. Oops. These are distinctly not dog behaviors. They're specific to coyotes and much more cat-like. So please remember, their aim isn't to maul a dog. It's to get the dog to leave. It can be very scary. Small dogs, again, are a totally different issue. They have to always be tightly supervised, and they have to be picked up the minute a coyote is sighted. Intense communication, even to a leash dog, can be frightening if you don't know what's going on. And I want to remind everybody that leashing does not protect your pet. Leashing simply allows you to control one half of the equation. So in this short video, I'm going to show you the trigger is proximity, and it's the pupping season. You'll see this mother coyote kicks dirt and barks angrily. This is that fourth vocalization I wanted you to hear. And then she escorts the dog out of the area. The dog and owner are at the base of this hill. As they move away, the coyote now is following them. That's escorting behavior. She's actually kind of pushing them out of the area. Down the camera to let this woman know what the coyote wanted. And when I did notice, she walks on and the coyote veers off her path. And this is kind of interesting. That dog you'll never find a dog that calm around a coyote. So that he was very calm. And so was she. She in fact told me she thought that the coyote wanted to play with her dog or was looking for a mate, which I thought is funny. And here's even more intense and insistent messaging by a mother. In addition to the escorting behavior then you saw in that previous video, a coyote could follow a dog out of simple curiosity or to monitor it as it passes through its territory, even for a good half a mile. Keep walking away from the coyote, picking up a small dog as you go without running, dragging your larger dog if you have to, keeping an eye on that coyote. So if the coyote then comes critically close, which he probably won't if you're walking away from him, you can try scaring him away, but the most important thing is to keep walking away from that coyote. And I have found the best way to scare a coyote off is with a handful of gravel thrown angrily, viciously hard in their direction without hitting them. They become wary of both the extent and the breadth of your reach. It's a little bit like shrapnel, and this disarms them, makes them stop and think, and you can keep moving away from them. Testing is a little different from messaging and not so common. In fact, none of these interactions that I've gone over today is significant or important if you follow the guidelines. So please follow the guidelines. It's going to help you live through a scary experience. So a curious coyote may test or assess how a dog will react to them by approaching with a bouncy little gait or play bows and try to interact, touch, or in this case, nip the dog's tail. To end this behavior, please pull your dog away and keep walking away. It's not a play, they are testing. In a totally different vein, too much love is just as harmful to a coyote as a culture of fear. In some pockets of San Francisco, the pendulum has swung from fear to way too much love for the coyotes through feeding them, befriending them, approaching them, attempting to communicate with them. This human engagement over time can break down natural safety barriers, causing a coyote to hang around listlessly, approach people, beg, and chase cars. We humans help shape who the coyotes become by our own behaviors. Let's love their wildness, keep them at a distance, and keep them wild. And here is a coyote right in the middle of the street, stopping traffic. She is begging for food. And here is a coyote chasing cars. She's been repeatedly thrown food from car windows. So please don't feed coyotes. You're hurting them. You are not helping them. Small children are of special concern. Coyotes react to their small size and their erratic movements, as do many dogs, by the way. Please keep children far away from them, no matter how docile they appear, and supervise them closely in all coyote areas. And this is actually no different from keeping a child away from a skunk or raccoon or a steep cliff or an unknown dog. And an unknown dog is much more likely to nip a child than is a coyote. Also, I want everybody to know that coyotes are not the fearful animals they've been made out to be. Our constant presence inures them to us. So they don't flee quickly when they see us. But this isn't due to boldness, to their wanting to break any of our rules. It's simply they have become habituated to us. So it's up to us to keep our distance from them. The good news is that issues are very easy to resolve with minimal effort. Foremost, practice complete avoidance. The minute you see a coyote, leash your dog and walk away from it, picking up a small dog as you go. Please don't allow pets to roam free. Prevent your dog from chasing coyotes. Your dog might be chased back and messaged with a nip. Keep food of any kind out of your yard if you don't want coyotes visiting. In the public realm, the state of California and the city of San Francisco support coexistence through education. They've deemed coyotes not risky. Yet we continue to get sensationalist, fear-provoking, baseless postings on Nextdoor and in the news, often amplifying fears unnecessarily instead of alleviating them. I want to give you some risks of injury to a human from a coyote are very minor, and I wanted to show you some comparisons here. 5,000 people a year get killed simply crossing a street, whereas only 2 deaths of humans from coyotes have been recorded ever in all time. One of those was a child whose family, not neighbors, but family, had been feeding a coyote. 1,000 dog bites a day send people to emergency rooms every single day of the year, whereas bites and simple scratches from coyotes to humans amount to 17 a year for all of North America, almost all due to breaking up a dog-coyote encounter, hand feeding, or to a very young child in a denning area or where feeding has been going on. Pets need to be protected from many dangers. 5.4 million cats and 1.2 million dogs get killed by cars every year. Dog bites constitute the third largest injury to pets. Potential danger from a coyote is minor, and it can be prevented with precautions. So that covers their coexistence and stewardship. And now if you have just a minute and a half, do you have? Oh, but wait, I'm not quite over yet. So I wanted to show you a quick communication between a mated pair of coyotes. And here they are. This is the mated pair who had been together for many years. But over time, the male became profusely fed and befriended by humans, causing him to hang around on park trails for long stretches of time instead of spending time with his family. And of course, more dogs chased him because he was on the trails, and there were more dog coyote incidents. But instead of becoming more self-protective, as most coyotes would, he became meeker and milder, allowing both coyotes, dogs and people to approach and mingle within only a very few feet of himself. And there's dogs mingling and there are people mingling. My efforts to stop this fell absolutely flat. But his mate also saw no good here, and she tried repeatedly extracting him from this situation. And I wanted to show you her communication here. So I'm going to talk first about the left slide and then move on to the right. On the left, he'd been here for about half an hour waiting for handouts when she suddenly appeared on the right with her piercing look. On the left, you see he jumps up even before seeing her. He could sense she was there. And the right, you see her very purposeful approach. Then on the left, she stares at him with that steely stare that we saw earlier in that video. And on the right, if you can see, she gives him a warning lick. He did not respond. So then on the left, she pinches him on the lip and he snaps back on the right in pain. On the left, then he dodges her before she pinches him again. And on the right, notice she plants herself in front of him. Then on the left, she intensifies her message by lunging at him. And then on the right, punching him to get him moving. On the left, he darts away defensively, but she returns. On the right, she is not going to give up. And finally, on the left, he becomes resigned to the inevitable. She walks off with him following obediently afterwards. So that covers what I wanted to say today to you. We have covered where coyotes live in San Francisco. They live in single-family owned territories. We've covered who they are. They're highly social family critters. We've covered how to get along and steward them, walk away, stay away from them. And lastly, we covered communication between a mated pair. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Janet. Fascinating talk, really. We don't have any questions from the 15 or so people on Zoom yet, but we have some from the room here. I'll read a few of them to you now. Okay. I think you might have covered this already, but is the government of San Francisco welcoming, protecting of coyotes, or are they doing anything to help them?
I'm not part of the government, but they do seem to have a coexistence policy, and they're not doing anything to help them, but they aren't doing anything to hurt them either. So they're welcome here, and we have to live with them. It's really the state of California, as far as I know, who will not get rid of them unless they are doing something harmful.
Are they messaging the population in the ways that you are about what to do and what not to do?
I think really, although the city doesn't like me very much, the message is the same. Yeah, it's coexistence.
Okay, thank you. I just saw a message flash by from Zoom. Someone asked about the pronunciation. Why is it coyote instead of coyote? Or is that what is the origin of the
Coyote
word?
is Spanish.
Okay.
Coyote is usually Eastern Coast. Coyote, some people say coyote. And in Texas, I didn't even know what this guy was talking about. He goes, cout. That's what he called them.
Do you have any idea why people who guide immigrants across the southern border are called coyotes? Maybe you didn't even know that.
No, I'm not part of
Okay.
this.
What are population stats? You've been talking about San Francisco, I think,
Yeah.
almost exclusively. What is the coyote population in the areas around us on the peninsula, Marin County?
I cannot answer that. I am very focused only on San Francisco.
They are everywhere, though, right?
Oh, they are. But
Okay.
by territorial size, you should be able to figure out, the most that might be in an area.
Mhm. Are they related to wolves in any way?
Maybe way back,
Hmm.
but dogs are related to wolves. But coyotes, I think, branched off much earlier.
So they're a more distant relative of common
I
dogs
believe
than
so.
wolves.
I don't know this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
From your map of the territories, some of them it appears to include the densest parts of the city, like even
Oh, yeah.
downtown. Where would a
Oh,
den exist?
Not downtown.
Okay.
That was kind of
All right.
yeah.
Where would they make a den in a dense area though? I mean, the whole city is pretty dense, right? So do they go
Maybe
under houses?
backyard.
Back-
They tend to like areas where there are no dogs. So the reservoirs are a good place. Along freeways is a good place. Yeah, they opportunistic.
They find a place. What do you recommend the city and county of San Francisco can do to help preserve coyote life?
Educate.
Educate. Okay. Our domestic dogs were once wolves. Breeding changed the wolves and foxes to domesticated animals. Has this breeding ever been attempted with coyotes?
No, not that I know of. I know some people have had coyotes as pets. They do not make good pets. So, and also it's illegal to have them as a pet.
I was wondering about that last one you showed us that was becoming very tame. Like,
Yeah.
did someone
Well,
try to domesticate it
no, guess what happened to him? He was shot by the city.
for scaring a child or something like that?
Mhm.
Yeah. Hmm. Does animal control help with injured coyotes?
No, that's not their job. So they don't. So, and in most injuries are minor, and nature will take care of the injury if it's very bad. If a coyote is immobile, animal care and control, as far as I know, I don't work with animal care and control, but animal care and control will pick up an injured animal that is immobile. Otherwise, that's not their
Including a coyote.
right.
An injured coyote, they would come and,
Only if it's immobile.
okay.
Yeah,
What happens then?
I don't know.
I wonder if they
I
euthanize
don't
them.
know. Yeah.
Is there a family or two in McLaren Park, as far as you know?
Yes, there is. Yeah.
How about San Bruno Mountain?
That's south. That's not my,
Okay, that's technically not in San
that's
Francisco.
not,
That's
yeah.
right. I would think there must be some there.
Yeah.
And a good place for them to live, really, right? It's pretty wild.
Yeah, but remember territoriality limits how many can live there.
What what about coyotes coming into your dog's territory as happened at our vineyards? Our dog met them in the corner by our house and howled with them. There was no aggressive interaction, apparently.
Well, I know they exclude each other, so dogs don't want coyotes around. Coyotes don't want dogs around. Uh, Coyotes mark their territories with urine, and I'm sure it overlaps private territory. We
Mm.
mark our territories with fences, and they overlap sometimes. I guess the animals have to work it out.
Probably just a matter of time until that got more testy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please remember that coyotes are very small. They're only about 32 pounds. So most dogs are much bigger than this.
Do you have observation posts where you watch and film the coyotes from? How do you describe your methods a little bit, as I guess with the question?
I watch them. I've been doing this for 18 years, and I never go anywhere without my camera. My camera both takes videos and it takes stills, and I basically know where the coyotes are, and I get pictures and I get videos, and I do post on both my blog and an Instagram account, and I have those up here if anybody's interested. I don't tell locations, and I that is very much on purpose because I don't want to. I don't want to do anything that might harm the coyotes. I think they need to be left alone.
Someone asked if you would show the map again. I don't know how easy that would be for you to do with your
I don't think I can
presentation.
right
Okay,
now.
that's okay then.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, we just have one more question. There is an overpopulation of coyotes in the small parks we have. Do we,
Who,
how, someone is making that statement.
Mhm.
We now manage coyotes wandering our streets. Is anyone helping these animals?
so I'm it's important to try to remember what I said about their population. Our parks are not being overrun by coyotes. And ever for 18 years now, I have seen what families live in these parks. And it's always one family that has not changed. So you go to McLaren, you go to Glen Canyon, you go to the Presidio, you go to all of these parks, they still have one family. Now, the different individuals in those families might be more visible at times. And certainly over time, I think coyotes have become more used to people and are less willing to just flee from them. As I said, they're not terribly afraid of humans, but they're wary and they're going to keep their distance. But we don't have our parks, they're not more coyotes in the parks. I'm sorry, they're not.
We have some more questions. Someone lives on 29th Avenue at Lake Street, 1 block from 24th and Lake, 1 block from the Presidio. Are the coyotes who come up into the neighborhood the same ones?
Yes.
That's a territory, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. When coyotes do their call, isn't it dangerous for their security?
I don't know what that means.
Probably means they're telling everyone that they're here, and someone who doesn't
No,
like them.
they vocalize for various reasons, and they respond to sirens. I don't, I can't answer that question. It's not a simple question, but it's not a warning.
They do it for all kinds of reasons,
All
including
kinds
being
of reasons.
playful.
We went over some of them here.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you answered this question. What is the typical weight of an adult coyote?
What's the weight?
A weight.
So I would say between 30 and 35. It might get a little higher than that. We have eastern coyotes that are a different subspecies that weigh between, I've heard between maybe 40 and 50 and 60, as high as 60 pounds. We do not have that coyote here. We have what's called the western coyote. It's quite small compared to the East Coast ones.
Okay. And finally, do you accept contributions for the work you do in helping to protect coyotes?
No, everything I do is absolutely volunteer. If you want to contribute to any organization, I always suggest Wild Care in San Rafael. I admire their work, and yeah, any contributions, please give to them.
Okay, thank you so much, Janet. Fascinating talk. Really, really good. Okay, as we wrap up, I'll just say that next Sunday we have forum again. We have two young activists who will be talking to us about immigrant rights and trying to stop the deportations, basically. So we have Sanika Mahajan and Jesus Moctezuma coming next Sunday. Please come back next Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you.